Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Oh, yes, cool. Thank you to the saint who brought me some coffee, wherever he is. Yeah, very well needed. So I don't usually use prompt cards, but on 2 hours sleep, I thought I might need them. So I put some out. But you should be all here for how to future-proof yourself in an uncertain Salesforce future. And if you're not, you probably want to go into lower sugar room, which is just there. So yeah, all good. Okay, so, but it has been a bit strange over the last couple of years, but I kind of wanted to put some sense to it, because there's loads of people going, hey, you need to find a niche, hey, you need to create your profile, and blah, 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 blah. But I kind of want to ground it in a little bit of how I think of the Salesforce ecosystem from working in it for like 15, 17 years now. I kind of lost count. But first, we're going to go back to 1945, because that's what you do, right? And the lift operators union were going on strike. Yes, automated lifts were coming out, and they were threatened by it, and they basically went on strike, and New York was paralyzed. I love this article. New York hit by huge elevator operator strike. Yeah, and if you go into the detail, it says, I'll read it from down here, thousands struggled up stairways that seemed endless, including those of the Empire State Building, the tallest structure in the world. Yeah, and funnily enough, this was in 1945, and automated lifts actually existed back in 1900. Right? But there was people were so scared of getting a lift on their own, it just didn't catch on. There was the fear of this kind of automation of these lifts. But 1945, I'm afraid, was a little bit of the nail in the coffin for lift operators. And there was a big PR drive, and automated lifts started coming out in more vengeance. But I kind of think this is where we are. Not quite like this with AI. So it's not really like this where we're kind of losing jobs, but kind of all our productivity is kind of shifted up and kind of accelerated up a level. But I think this is nothing new, because over the years we're getting more and more kind of the way we work, we're learning more, we're kind of optimizing the way we do things and improving the way we do things. So it's just that this has been a bit of a big jump, right? So where are we right now in the Salesforce ecosystem? So I think this is from Salesforce Ben, literally 3 days ago. Fresh Salesforce layoffs bring yearly total to 1,000 layoffs at Salesforce. OpenText to lay off nearly 1,200 employees. And SAP surpasses Salesforce's market cap. Revenue grew 2 times as fast. So it's kind of like, okay, we're still kind of in this kind of strange world. We've had COVID, where there's a kind of a gorging on Salesforce tech, and suddenly this kind of collapse. And I saw this. I was involved in this back in 2000, where we had the dot-com boom, right? And everybody, and also the year 2000 bug. Does anybody remember that? Yeah, I'm showing my age now. Yeah. So all these companies were like, it's easier just to replace our hardware than it is to fix the issue, right? So everybody is buying hardware. You had the dot-com boom going on as well, and then literally everything fell off a cliff, right? Because everybody had kind of, I don't need to buy any more hardware. We've just been doing it for the last 5 years, right? Dot-com obviously just went belly up because everybody realized that, high street shops are still going to be around. You can't do everything online. And therefore, we've got this uncertainty right now that's similar to that over the COVID, but we've got this kind of long tail of it that we're kind of still getting over, in my opinion anyway. And so kind of understanding this kind of uncertainty, I think is kind of quite important to understand how we can plan our future in Salesforce, yeah? So we've got kind of economic instability and market volatility. Now, obviously, this is kind of delaying projects. And I'm seeing this, where clients are like, okay, yes, we really want to do this. And then it gets delayed a bit. And the decisions are just getting longer, right, before things get agreed. And also just that market volatility that's happening in the world as well. But I think also we got budget constraints. And one of those things I think might start hit, even though everybody's kind of, yay, the economy's getting better now. I still have a funny feeling that higher interest rates are going to bite at some point, because companies have kind of gorged on these low interest loans, and now they're trying to service that debt, but those loans are coming up maturing, and they're having to get those loans at a higher rate, which means that puts pressure on the budgets to do new work. And so, we're having this kind of pull with interest rates and kind of tighter budgets, which is meaning, less projects or not going live as much, but also kind of industry-specific trends, industry that's happening in the world. But this is all hearsay, right? Kind of. I want to see a bit of data to understand it, right? So, this is, my phone's just doing weird things. I think I'm going to call it. Anyway, this is the proportion of all mentions of Salesforce in jobs in the UK. And these are specifically IT jobs. And you can see, actually, when the doom and gloom was happening, actually, in the UK, wasn't too bad. But now we've got this kind of dip. And actually, contracting roles are kind of accelerating off this year, and the permanent ones are, a little bit lagging behind. But I think this might come down to the thing of the fear of the unknown, interest rates, future like that. But they're like, oh, actually, I'm putting my foot in the water, committing to a project, but I want to do it get contractors in or freelancers in to do it because I can easily can it, right? If things become uncertain. So this is where I think this is happening right now, and what's going into the market. But another view of this is looking at Salesforce administrator roles, because it's the problem with this is the amount of data we have in the UK. So it's hard to get kind of good stats. So Salesforce administrator generally is more jobs involving that title in the UK. But even so, this is why it's quite volatile, because there's not many in the UK to get accurate trends. But even so, you can see there's this dip, and then it's coming back up, right, on the data. So it's looking kind of interesting, in my opinion. And it might be that, we are actually, we are heading for, good times. Maybe, who knows? But also, this is interesting. This is a 3-month moving average of salaries, again, that cite Salesforce administrator in them. And obviously, if the roles are stagnating and nobody's hiring, then the roles stay static potentially, right? But even then, it's not, we had a big jump, 2023, but actually, last 5 years, 4 years, it's kind of been pretty stable in the UK, right? Do you agree? Yeah, exactly. So, so that's kind of interesting. But I think when people talk about, well, what do you need to do to face this uncertainty and this craziness? And they go, you need to build up your profile, do blog posts, do videos, do all this stuff, right? And then they go, you got to find a niche. And I'm like, yeah, but why? How? Why is this worth doing this? But for me, I ground it in value. And this is, I don't know if it's a business value stream. Okay, it's just a kind of example, but kind of going, well, a business, the whole point of a business, I'm talking about businesses rather than non-profits and government, but it's essentially kind of similar, just in a different way. I'm getting these raw materials or staff or whatever it may be at a certain value, like cost to me. I'm adding value to it through my organization, and then I'm selling it for more at the end of it. Well, that's the idea, right? And therefore, that is the value chain of that business. But then I'm like, okay, great. But then how does that relate to Salesforce? Well, obviously, Salesforce is underpinning a lot of those processes. So what is Salesforce's value to the business to understand where it fits? And actually, then, moving down again, I'm working in Salesforce. What is my value to Salesforce to help the business to really achieve those goals and add value to the organization? So for me, it's like, well, actually, I need to align what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, to that business value. and then to the Salesforce, understanding that's value in the business, to know that, and this is where I need to look at my slides, yes, that we're all problem solvers and we're getting all these problems, but I know then which problem to solve using Salesforce that's going to add the most value to Salesforce and the business. Then I'm driving my value to the organization, and therefore, the organization is paying my wage, right? So I want them to be earning more money based on what I'm doing than, otherwise if they're making a loss, bye, and also then I can demonstrate it. I can say, yeah, this is what I did, this is how it links to the value of the business, and wow, I've just saved time in this process, or increased the value of orders, or whatever it may be. So I think it's all about adaptability and long life learning. And I suddenly twigged this, because then when I realized that my first job in IT, I literally searched it online, does not exist anymore, right? It's an HTML developer. Like, who does that anymore, right? We're abstracted away from it. We've moved on from that, yeah? And that's a good thing, right? We don't have to hand code and crank, for random.com companies that now no longer exist. But that was my first role. And it's kind of this general evolution of the roles and this need to continually learn, to continually evolve and understand, okay, there is this API. Yay, this is going to take over all our roles. But in reality, we're kind of seeing how it fits, understanding how AI is going to actually answer and that be valuable to a company, right? What is the problem it's solving, right? If I have no problem, then why do I need it? Right? So linking that to the value, and also me and everything else. So I have been diving into data cloud and AI because I want to understand that, because I know it's going to come, but I still know that people have got to sort out their data, right, before they can get AI really to work well for them. And I can see that, it's helped me massively. Otter AI, anybody use Otter AI? I know, it's amazing. It comes on all my calls, transcribes all my calls, pulls out my actions. I can ask it questions when a client said, we've got this amount of data in our org and it's screwing it up. I just ask it, how much data was it? And it tells me, right? So it makes me so much more efficient. It's amazing. But also kind of learning outside the ecosystem. Just don't kind of keep in the Salesforce ecosystem learning. So Ines, who's here today, got a great Udemy course on the data cloud, which I basically took my certification from using, as well as everything kind of in Trailhead. But it's really good. It kind of goes, move by move. But I think also, Salesforce is shifting their model, right? And again, this is looking into the future. We're moving into a more consumption-based model of pricing. Which will fundamentally change how we build applications on Salesforce. Data Cloud is a great example. If you don't do all the planning up front and really understand where that value is coming and the action you're going to go on the data and the ROI you're going to get, just chucking loads of data in and getting Data Cloud to process it and transform it, it's going to cost you a lot of money, right? Because these credits are burning, right? So you've got to do that planning and understanding. And it's something we not really had to do in the past. Certain things like Pardot, number of prospects and stuff like that. There's some, consumption stuff. But the whole platform, I think, is going to go that way. Now, I'm not going to delve too much into Data Cloud, but I think you should start learning it or understanding it, because Data Cloud, 5-10 years' time may become the Salesforce database that underlines everything, right? With the zero-copy integration to data sources and stuff like this, where I don't actually have to persist my data in Salesforce, stuff like that, which is kind of really cool. But I'm not going to dive into too much. If anybody saw me at the World Tour, I did Unleash Data Cloud and AI, Craft Your Salesforce Future, which I go into way more detail about this on Data Cloud and AI and what you should be looking at. And there's an admin2architect.com/datacloudai, and it's just a YouTube video, and it's the whole talk from World Tour on there if you want to check it out. But because of this consumption-based model, we need to start learning different things, right? And again, putting my futuristic hat on, Salesforce is really going to become a lot easier to integrate with data sources and other parts within the Salesforce, within your kind of app landscape within different organizations. So understanding data flow diagrams, ERDs, dictionaries, data dictionaries, understanding that industry field in one data source may be very different to the industry field in another one, and coming up with a kind of a data dictionary of alignment of, okay, financial services, this means financial something else in this other data source, so I can actually harmonize that data really well. But again, it's all that planning up front and understanding what you need to do. 80% planning, 20% implementation, kind of in data cloud, in my opinion, anyway. And I think Salesforce says that as well. And I kind of, this is coming out next week, which is a deep dive with Elements Cloud's Ian Gotts, who are here today. They're doing really cool stuff with Data Cloud and AI with Elements Cloud, which is kind of fun. Okay, so the next thing I mentioned was, find your specialism or your niche or whatever that may be. Now, we're in a kind of global world, and I don't know about you, I still get these emails. I keep on going on about this to my students, people out, and I still get the emails. Who gets the emails saying, hi, we're a Salesforce development partner. We've got all these certified people. We can do everything, right? And I'm like, great. And I reply to all of them in exactly the same way. That's fabulous. What do you specialize in, or what are you really good at, right? Because I want to know what they are really good at and what problem domain they understand and how that relates to Salesforce. 0 replies. Like, I may have had 1 or 2 where it's just repeating the same message again, but pretty much nothing. And that's because I think a lot of people, when they talk about finding your niche and your specialism, they think of technology, right? Oh, I am specializing in CPQ. I'm specializing in Marketing Cloud. I'm specializing in whatever it may be. But for me, that's wrong, right? What I think is where the secret sauce is technology plus an industry. Because by knowing that industry, you know all the problems that particular industry has. You know how the solutions and possible options there are within the Salesforce environment, right? And what to use and what not to use, because you've been there, done it, got the t-shirt. And then combining those two together, then you're focusing on, okay, I'm going to start telling the world, maybe do a little video on that industry plus that technology. And then you're becoming, okay, you are, and it's happening already, right? You are known as the person that is the guru in this technology and this industry. Why would I go to anybody else, right? Even if I just have you on a retainer or a very high rate to come in and review what we're doing to make sure that we're on the right track, right, for these different companies, right? And then it's great because you get a lot of money for a small amount of time, right? But you're known as that. But also, that's what companies want, right? They want you to talk their language. You want them to know the technology and how it relates to them and on what to do and what not to do. Does that make sense? I think it does to me, right? And it's all going back to that value chain of understanding, well, why did the company buy Salesforce? That's one of my questions I ask. It's amazing how many people don't know, right? Why did you get Salesforce? To help sales, Oh, they just bought a solution to fix some problem, but yeah, don't know what it is. But also I think another thing is, again, it's kind of related to that, is a lot of people got this functional mindset of, and I think Salesforce, Trailhead, it's very functional. These are the features, this is how you use it. Right? It's functionally understanding the features, and obviously there's more stuff in there as well, but generally the majority of it is functionality, how to use it, right? But actually, you need to kind of move along from that functional thinking to becoming a trusted advisor, because that's when you start getting the really interesting information, right? So, okay, I'm working for a business, they tell me to do something, I go and create that field, right? Or going back and going, okay, what do you want? Why do you want it? Okay, you want this. Okay, understand. And becoming that trusted advisor within the organization, so they actually trust your solution. You've done your homework, and like some of the calls I have is like, there's actually a big merger of two companies, and I was advisor for them, and they wanted to do a big Salesforce org merge, right? Merging these two companies together, blah, blah, blah. But when you got to the root of their problem, the problem was that they didn't have the sales visibility between the two organizations. But they had Snowflake, they had all these data warehouses and all this stuff. And they're like, well, it's a data problem you've got. It's not a Salesforce problem. Start with the data problem first, getting the data out, getting those reports and dashboards. That's way cheaper than doing a massive org merge, right? And then that, again, goes back to that value of understanding what's the biggest value for the organization and linking it to what you're doing, yeah? But also with a trusted advisor, and this is really cool, you start getting the information that they may not necessarily tell other people. We're going to be merging with this company. They've got a really good sales team, so we kind of don't think our sales team's going to work. We're just going to, remodel those roles into something else, but essentially being disbanded or something like this, right? Generally, that kind of never happens. They just move them into other roles, right? But it's that understanding that, and that could fundamentally change how you build a solution and how you get the value of Salesforce, right? I need to be that trusted advisor. But, and this is where you never say you're a trusted advisor. Most of all, you never say you're vital, right? Because for you, it's really good, okay? Once you've gone from that trusted advisor into the vital space, they absolutely want you. They can't let go of you, right? But the rules don't apply to you anymore, right? They know your value is so good for the organization that if they let you go, or if something happens, we've got to look after you, holiday does not apply to you, You can have whatever holiday you like, And so getting to that vital, it's rare, I sometimes get there. But I was actually on one project, and there's 5 of us. It was during COVID, it was insane. But we'd done loads of homework before, and we'd basically built other DevOps and everything else. They had a problem. We were first to market with the solution, really focused, crack team, working on it, and it increased their global revenues by 500 million globally. And we became vital. They were like, oh my word, you're amazing, yeah? If only I'd, bought shares in the company at the time, but never mind. But again, you kind of now, they think it just happenstance that it kind of all worked out. But, you're now pushed into that vital stage of them wanting advice on everything they do to make sure they're doing it in the right way, because they've seen the massive value that you can give for the organization, yeah? Right, and then we have, I think that everything everybody does is that kind of networking, communication, getting involved with the community and understanding the problems that people have. And I'm kind of hoping, like at the moment, we've got generic community groups, right? I don't know, but maybe we start build, even if it's kind of offline or, small groups where we become hey, we're in financial services marketing cloud. And that is the kind of new community groups that start spreading around the world. Because I just want to know all those business problems that you have in financial services and how they use or don't use marketing cloud effectively, right? So start doing that. I think that'd be really good, right? If you're interested in that. But does that make sense? Right. I don't think have we got any mics in here? This could go horribly wrong. But I was going to open it up to some Q&As to see what you feel the state of the UK Salesforce industry is, what you think the future is going to hold. Because I think it's like reading tea leaves sometimes. It's really hard. And your thoughts on what I've said so far. Anybody going to put their hand? Oh, yes, Connie.
I think up to point, I think you're right. I think the challenge is for a lot of people to get there and to specialize. Like I in itself, I'm super specialized. I'm a trainer.
Yeah.
I do end user training. I don't do anything else. But it's convincing the whole world that businesses need a trainer. Like you have fantastic developers, architects here. How many of you have on your project a dedicated trainer?
Yeah.
And so I'm shouting into the void for the better part of the last 5 years. And I think that is going to be also slightly here. The issue is if you go that specialization, how do you shout into this void that is filled with I'm an admin, I'm a developer, I'm an architect, I know everything.
But that's, I think, yeah, I know, right, it's okay, yeah.
So yes, I can see it going that way. How do you cut through that is the challenging bit, and that's my question to you. How can somebody that says, I'm a financial industries marketing specialist, how can they cut through the void? Because we probably have some in here that are specialists in
Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is the question was, if I can get it right. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you get the concept, but how do you get there? How do you kind of message that in a way that people go, yeah, I get that? And I think it all comes down to the problems, right? What are the problems for not having training? Your adoption is less. You're not going to get a better value. I can demonstrate this on previously, before they didn't have training, to after there was this percentage increase, right, in sales, or whatever it may be. But I think I do this thing called the 100 problems, right? So when I go get a kind of architectural piece of work, I kind of start talking to the client, and I want 100 problems that the company has, right? And to try and figure out from those 100 problems, what is that solution and the kind of goal that they want to get to. And so you got the problems here, you got that, yeah, utopian goal, but then you got the middle bit of going, okay, how do I move them from all, they know they've got all these problems, you've got this utopian goal that's really hard to describe, right, except for training is great, yeah? But then you've got the middle bit that says, right, to solve these problems, you need to be honest, I would even take training out of the question. Don't even call it training, right? You're saying, here is the problem domain, yeah, and this is what you need to do to get to the goal of being able to sell more, whatever that niche is for that industry, for that piece. Oh, and by the way, it's a training program. Does that make sense? So it's again rooting in the problems, and that's how I'd approach it. So it's the problems.
Here, say you have a financial marketing plan.
Yeah.
They're on LinkedIn. How can they shout out the industry?
You know all the problems. You know all the problems in the industry, right? Yeah. You're relating that to the product, yeah? And so by saying KYC processes in loan management doesn't work, these are the best practices that you should be looking for if you're using Salesforce. Look at these types of integrations to improve your data. Look at this to da-da-da. And so you're focusing on the problems, not really the solution, but you're saying, here are the answers to the problems. Because basically what they're doing, they're going to search is, how do I fix my KYC in Salesforce? They're searching. They want to know about how to solve these problems they have, rather than the journey, yeah? Does that make sense? Well, that's why I see it as a, yeah. So you're just shouting the problems. Anybody else? Yes?
You mentioned about reading tea leaves. How do you read them?
Reading tea leaves, how do you read them? I turn them upside down. Yeah. I think, no, but it's a good question, because it's like...
No, that was a joke.
No, I know, but it's that futuristic thing, right? And like, as an architect, you need to build Salesforce for the future, but you don't know it, right? You were reading tea leaves a little bit. So you've got to build that solution to support the future, right? So it's got to be loosely coupled. It's got to be simple, so that if the future changes, you can simply change it. Easier said than done. And actually one architect I was talking to said that he leaves his decision-making for what approach he's going to do as long as possible, because then that keeps all the different options open until eventually you have to go, right, we go this approach. Because then you've built the system to hopefully support the unknown, because you haven't made a decision, and then you make the decision at the end, so that if you roll back, you've only got the bit at the front to kind of roll back, and hopefully it kind of supports the future. I think that's a bit scary, but yeah.
You mentioned about adding in a layer of industry to our expertise.
Yeah. Yeah, so
when the company's looking for people, it's not looking for business analysts with a particular industry experience. So how likely is that to match with each other?
I think they do, right, if they were looking properly, but also, so the question is, how do you actually show yourself as this niche within this industry with this knowledge, of Salesforce knowledge, right? And because people are looking for a Salesforce admin. But also, I think I've got a bizarre graph that I draw that a Salesforce admin role is just mental. It could be many, many different things to different organizations, and it's a complete craziness. But also, it's like, well, it's kind of like the traditional way of, here's my CV, my resume. I don't know where I never sent my resume for the last 7, 8 years, right? And it's kind of like, well, I just want to solve these problems, yeah? If you're saying, and they're searching for people that can solve those problems, and you can solve them, their first search is maybe online, right? It's a talk about this particular problem, right? And then or a book that you've written about the industry for this problem, right? And therefore, actually, you're getting roles and work from that. A friend of mine wrote a Salesforce book on a topic and is now getting calls from people that have got a problem that matches that industry and sales just by writing a book, yeah? And saying, oh, this is the best practice of what I kind of understand, and getting work out of it, yeah? So, it's a big cultural shift. I think it's also how do you know? Because also it's the challenge of going, I get all these CVs on my desk. How do I actually know which ones, especially if I don't really know Salesforce, how do I know which one's the right candidate, right? Oh, do you know Apex? You're an admin, right? You need, no, I don't know what Apex is, but I'm asking it on the CV, the job advert anyway. But if you're linking it in the problems of the business and say, hey, I'm a Salesforce admin, and I understand the business and the problems you have, and you've kind of said that in posts and things like that, then it's like, oh, actually, she's quite good. But also, you can then reach out the other way to them and ask for the job and say, hey, look, I'm right in your wheelhouse. I know this industry. Have you got any roles? Skips out recruitment consultancies, if there's any here, sorry. And you become instantly more valuable than the load of CVs that have come from the recruitment consultancy. They're not going to get any fees, yeah? And be more effective because you've proven that, you know all the apps on App Exchange that solve that problem for that particular industry or whatever, and Any other questions? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do you observe people really leave in Salesforce ecosystem to any other technologies? And if yes, to which technologies?
Okay, the question is, do you see any people leaving the Salesforce ecosystem to other technologies? Yes, but there's still lots of people coming in and coming out, and it's still very fluid, right? I think, actually, I didn't mention it in the talk, but I had a slide in here that I didn't actually put in. I actually hid it. I almost put it in, but I didn't. And that is actually around the Salesforce kind of maturity curve of where we are with Salesforce, right? And at the beginning, when it started out, nobody knew Salesforce, but it didn't really matter. You could be a generalist for everything, right? And now you've crossed the chasm. Anybody read Crossing the Chasm? Okay, great book. It's about a technology company where you're starting out a company, and it gets to a point where you've got the visionaries, the tech people that just get it. You've got the visionaries that really understand what you're trying to do. And then you've got this chasm to try and get to the next lot of people to sell your technology, right? And this is nodding a lot, yeah. And so Salesforce had that same problem, right? But now we've kind of hit the top where it's global, everybody understands it, gets it. Now you're getting the laggards, like all these companies in the UK, that have Salesforce and have, implemented it. But we're kind of on this scope, and it happened with SAP, basically, exactly the same. You could be a generalist. People started specializing, and now you're specializing down in SAP. You are just gurus in one particular area of SAP. You never touch anything else, right? And it's the same way Salesforce is going. It's following that kind of SAP kind of size and scale where you can't learn it all. There is if I see anybody saying they're a Salesforce guru, it's just like, it's impossible. No, you're not, right? Even if you have got 37 certifications, you've forgotten the first 5 because you're now on the 37th. I can't even remember what the question was. 2 hours sleep. I'm just talking crazy. And oh, yes?
So you were talking about this is the problem that I can solve, and weaving that story together, then you really have to understand what the problem, not only the industry, but specifically what the problem that they are having, and that leader or that group of people that you're talking to, what, just like you were saying, you were showing value. So what's the value to them? And how do you frame that to really showcase your position?
So basically now I say that I'm going to understand, I'm not going to talk anything about Salesforce. I want to learn about you, all your problems, your goals, your achievements, or what you want, and I don't want to talk about Salesforce whatsoever, which lots of people are like, I don't want to do that. I just want to do this in Salesforce. We just bought it. We want to start using it. And then basically say, look, we've done, because I specialize in security and financial services, basically, right? And I basically say, look, this is what I'm going to do with you. If you don't want to do it, then there's this other company that's really good at Salesforce consultancy, go work with them, right? Because I want to know that I want to get a really good solution at the end of the day. And without going through those questionings of it's basically creating a value canvas for them to understand what is the problems they're currently having. Maybe this is another talk. I'll open up my little book. What are the problems? The kind of T-shirt sizes. What is the kind of an outline solution to it? But what are you measuring, right? I want to know. I want to go on a project where I can measure, and measures are not everything, but I want to know that I've given you value and I can prove it, right? So what are the measures for this piece of work, and can we accurately work it out, right? So I'm working with a company at the moment, very large company that's doing B2B commerce, right? And they're like, oh, I don't know where the value's coming, and blah, 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 blah. But it's like we did a lot of work up front to identify how would they measure success. And we kind of worked out that it was really hard to figure it out. So actually, it then became, the project is, because it's so hard to measure out, we don't want to do a full implementation. We want to do a very small POC implementation that is this set of products, nothing more. We want to prove and measure it to see if it's successful, and then we'll put the money in, right? And then other companies would have gone, yes, we're going to do it. Oh, product, bah, 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 a massive project that gets to the end and doesn't work, right? And B2B commerce, it's probably an easy thing to measure, right? You get a sale at the end of it, right? But yeah, it's a different beast. Does that kind of answer your question? Ish.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
Hi, Francis. Going back to your automated lists example,
Yeah.
and given Salesforce's massive investment in AI, when do you see Salesforce turning us all into Luddites and it's self-automating and administrating itself?
It won't. Right, so the question is, now we're seeing that AI is coming in. When is Salesforce going to turn us all into Luddites and it just doing it all for us, right? So my example to that is, if you, I don't know if anybody saw this, but somebody asked AI, how do I keep my toppings on my pizza? And AI replied, put glue on the pizza to help the toppings stick, yeah? And I think this is the kind of thing where it's like, it's a bit like the HTML developer role, right? It's just you have these surges in innovation, right? And everybody goes, whoa, and then there's another surge. So AI, a lot of the testing and groundwork from that is chess, computer, simulations and things that have gone on for years, computerized chess, stuff. And literally, I think it was in the 80s or 90s, Kasparov got beaten by Deep Blue, yeah? It was in the news. Oh my word, computers are taking our jobs, yeah? And it was a big thing. And because for the perception of people at the time, there was this massive technical jump. But in reality, we have these jumps in technology, and then people get scared of them and freak out and then try and figure out, oh, actually, this is where the value is. Okay, cool. And we're kind of then carrying on. And then there's another big jump in technology. Everybody freaks out and scared. And I think that's what it is, right? It's not going to take away our jobs. It's just going to make us more efficient in what we do. We can then get closer to the business, right? And really understand the problems. It's going to elevate us out. And in fact, I got a deck, I got 25 seconds, that I did at Dreamforce 10 years ago, I think it was. I should get the slide out again. And it was Process Builder has come out. It's the end of Apex, yeah? And all it was I had a slide saying, this is where we are. Apex is 90% of everything, and Process Builder or Workflows is here, but now with Process Builder, Apex has been pushed away from you, right? We've got less Apex needed because we now have Process Builder. And with Flow, that's pushing it down again. But have we had, from 7 years ago, have you seen people going, I'm a Salesforce developer and Flow is going to kill and lose my job. I want it out. It doesn't happen, right? It's just a continual evolution. And that's why learning and understanding and keeping current and keeping up with the trends so you can move through this evolution. From me working at the BBC as a network engineer, getting loads of really cool money until it started getting outsourced, money was coming down, jumped into web development. It was really good until the dot-com crash. Again, another slide I almost put in here. There was people with signs on the street going, we'll code HTML for food, and stuff like that, which didn't make the deck, but yeah. But I think, it's just an evolution of what's already happened in the past. So hope that was useful. If so, that is it. It's me.